Thank you, everyone. Hello to everybody. And thank you for attending this webinar, which is called Changing the Way We Grow and Eat Through Artistic Practices in Numbers, with Martin Zett, artist in residence at ArtMill, Georgina Hill, artist in residence at Campo Adentro, Maria Varela, artist in residence at TAVROS, at Locus Athens, and a curator, Olga Hatzidaki, and Andrea Carotte and Rafaela Spagna, artist duo in residence at Parco Arte Vivente in Italy. So thank you, everyone. This webinar is part of the research creation program, the Table and Territory. There is a site. And this program of research is co-facilitated by COAL, an NGO about art and environment, the LADYSS, a laboratory of research, and the Center for Earth Politiques, a center dedicated to promoting interdisciplinary research and research creation on the environment. The Table and Territory is a transdisciplinary European cooperation project funded by Creative Europe to develop and link a community of cultural actors that act for ecology and sustainable food across Europe. The project is implemented by 6 leading European players in the field of art, ecology, and territories. I'm talking about Zones Sensibles in France, Campo Adentro in Spain, ArtMill in Czech Republic, Locus Athens in Greece, and the PAV Parco Arte Vivente in Italy. This webinar is the last in a series of 4 that will allow us to explore the role of art and artists in the world of agriculture. We will look tonight more broadly at what art does to agriculture and agriculture to art. Why did we have the idea of this program, linking art and agriculture? We thought with COAL that food and the way we grow and use land is at the heart of environmental health, climate change, and biodiversity issues. We believe that artists have a central role to play in highlighting another way of producing food and land, also of consuming. This exploratory work will result in a book, which is due in 2022, co-written with Barbara Benish, the managing director of the ArtMill in Czech Republic. This book will expose in more details the importance of these experiments in research and creation. I have the pleasure to receive tonight, and I will present each person, each artist by order. Maria Varela is a multidisciplinary artist with an interest in collective productions and women's community. She creates digital and physical artifacts, system, environments, and live events in which concepts such as identity, memory, tradition, and folklore are explored. Maria Varela, with a new work, which is called Decorated Bread, is part of TAVROS programming. Olga perhaps you should tell me how you pronounce your name, because it's a quite difficult name for a French mouth.
Hatzidaki.
Hatzidaki is a curator and cultural producer based in Athens. Ongoing practice revolves around public space and the different tools that can be used to address social issues and the ever-increasing climate violence. Olga co-directs Locus Athens and is a co-founder of TAVROS, a newly created non-profit art space in the district of Athens and a home for Locus Athens projects with exhibition, conferences, community projects aimed at addressing the social and political circumstances around us. Then Georgina Hill is an artist. It was perhaps, I was talking about first Andrea Caretto and Raffaella Spagna. They invest the field of living things, food, and its history, and conceived art as an inquiry, a free way of questioning the multiple dimensions of reality, formal, physical, philosophical, and social, in accordance with their respective backgrounds, landscape for Spagna and natural sciences and scientific museology for Caretto. Their projects always result from a relational process with the organic and inorganic elements of the environment in which they operate. Then I guess Georgina Hill is an artist. She collaborates regularly with Campo Adentro and in particular participated in 2019 in the methodology of the knowledge recomposition program Inland New Curriculum. The practice focuses on the formal hybridity of the moving image and the intersectional politics of the local, using the languages of video, text, installation, and their combination. Then, last but not least, rather, the Czech artist Martin Zed, born, is one of the most remarkable and prolific artists in Eastern Europe. His performative and plastic works, which includes video, sculpture, drawing, found objects, writing, and photography, have been presented around the world for more than 20 years. His latest retrospective as part of his work at the Academy of Applied Art in Prague was an ode to his father, a renowned socialist sculptor from the former Czechoslovakia who died 25 years ago. In residence at ArtMill for Table and Territory, he is creating a groundbreaking work on our relationship to food and waste. So after this brief presentation, I have the pleasure to give the floor to Maria and Olga for a first round of questions regarding the project in TAVROS. Maria and Olga, please.
Hello.
So hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be among such wonderful artists and your companion tonight. I am Olga Hatzidaki, curator of Locus Athens and co-founder of TAVROS, as already mentioned. For our contribution to the program Table and Territory, we decided to focus on bread and invited 3 Greek artists, Maria Varela, who is tonight with us, Paki Vlasopoulou and Hyperconf, who were discussed mostly last night on the French panel, to think around bread and their own artistic approach. Tonight, together with Maria, we will talk about her practice. Maria works and edits and shuffles language, codes, symbols of traditional techniques rooted in folk cultures, which are often linked to networks of female domestic labor, companionship, and creativity. In her new work for the program, Decorated Bread, Maria refers to the common rituals and symbols associated to the process of decorating bread, aiming to update this pre-existing vocabulary, but also experience the ritualistic patterns of their production process. Maria, I'll leave the presentation up to you.
I would like to share my screen. You have to close yours.
Okay, give me a second. How do I close my screen now?
On the top, maybe?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. I will present you the product Decorated Bread, which is made in collaboration with TAVROS for Table and Territory program. I can change the, okay. So in Greek tradition, decorated bread appears in different ceremonies of life, such as weddings, engagements, funerals, or annual activities of farming, like harvesting the crops. The creator or the person who orders the bread has a specific intention in mind, a wish for good luck, happy life, or a rich harvest. So these breads always carry a supernatural significance. They are not directly connected to religion, however, they codify a wishful thinking. The decorations you can see on them are symbols inspired by everyday life and people's relationship with nature. So first step in my research methodology was to find symbols and meanings in Greek folk art. My research developed through the archive of Hellenic folklore research at the Academy of Athens. And the case studies that can reveal these connections are mostly textiles and wood carvings. Some of the most common symbols used are snakes, flowers, leaves, pine cones, grapes, pomegranates, birds, lizards, roosters. So after collecting all these symbols and meanings, I created a new glossary. Next step was to find out if the craft is still happening and meet the practitioners. There are still some women experts living in small communities and taking orders mostly for weddings. I met Miss Angeliki Kavakaki, who has formed a women cooperative creating handcraft products and traditional jams, liqueurs from fruits and grape products. I invited her to have once a week meeting in TAVROS space and learned directly from her the craft of bread decorating. We experiment with doughs, different decoration techniques, baking methods, and ways to preserve bread from molding. After 4 meetings we had, a lockdown happened in Athens, Greece. So all different stages from the project I will describe from now on were scheduled for November. First of all, an open call would happen for the audience to send me their wishes, intentions, or thoughts. You can see here the form. This way, I will collect a list of contemporary wishes, bread orders, in the form of a database. Then an algorithm will codify each wish according to the glossary I had already created. The algorithm will assign each wish to a random structure, one of these 6 structures you can see on the screen. And this will give me specific directions on which symbols should I use and in which order. This way, I define a visual language that incorporates technology in a desire to enable connection of practices of the past with current day conditions. All the above will conclude to a web performance. I will create decorated bread live for 7 days, 8 hours per day, and will be streaming live at TAVROS YouTube channel. The long durational performance, it tends to emphasize the experience of the production process. When the performance will be completed, a workshop will follow. I invite 5 Greek women contemporary artists, Spagna Lasopoulou, Maria Georgoula, Anastasia Douka, Malvina Panagiotidi, and Stefania Struza, to work together with 5 craft women from these women cooperative. Altogether, they will co-create wishes by decorating breads. The workshop will be an experimentation on the visual language that will be created on the bread. The challenge for the artists will be to work with doubt as a creative medium, and the challenge for the craftswoman will be to create a different narrative from the one that they are familiar with, because they're mostly working with happy couples or childbirth. Then the second event is also organized. 4 academics, George McGuinness, Giannis Dreams, Destina Nazo, and Destina Katapoti, are all invited to discuss on the theoretical framework and the project outcomes. The discussion will be recorded and presented as podcast. So the projection will be concluded to publishing the podcast and performance videos online on the project's webpage and a physical exhibition of the bread as artifacts at TAVROS space.
So having heard Maria's stages of labor and production, it probably now becomes a bit more evident that in her work, the focus lies not so much on the cultivation, growing and consumption of food and bread in particular, as it does on looking at bread differently as an aesthetical and cultural artifact, as a visual representation of techniques, of knowledge transmitted through generations. So an underlying question here is it truly possible to update and renew pre-existing and long-standing vocabulary linked to food through artistic practice? Maria repackages the production process of bread making, forming a hybrid metaform. In this metaform, dualities coexist: producer, consumer, online, offline, interface, face-to-face, present, past, individual experience, collective labor. All of the above intersect. So for Maria Varela, I would say that shaping a new process and ritual around bread becomes the artwork. Inventing a new code and language becomes the artwork. Forming new social networks of technical, theoretical, and experimental knowledge becomes the artwork. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, both of you. That was very nice. And I will leave the floor now to Raffaella and Andrea. They're not talking about a food that is produced like through art, but mainly, as I understood your project, as a food which grows into the soil and makes it visible somehow. So please.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. And in fact, soil, landscape, nourishment, and agriculture are among the issues that have characterized our artistic research since the beginning of our collaboration as a duo, and in 2002. And so it's interesting to have the opportunity to share some project and ideas with all of you tonight. And our approach is based on experience and an attitude to the presence and involvement of the body in close contact with the matter and its transformations. And we could call it an actic approach to landscape. And it is about trying to establish a relationship with the alterity, mineral, vegetable, animal, and on a new level. And that is an attempt to reposition ourselves as human beings, to stop talking and for once listening to the others, living and non-living, inhabiting the world with us. And now we selected some ongoing project, long-term project, and I start to share and show some picture. And we'd like to start with the first project we did together.
Yeah, it's Esculenta. We would like to start with Esculenta. Esculenta is a collective action of gathering and alimentary consumption of natural materials. That's the title. Esculenta is an ongoing project we started in 2002, in which we explore the human instinct to gather. Esculenta is from Latin, means edible things. It's the first project we did together with Raffaella and was a solid foundation on which to establish our collaboration also in many years. In 20 years we collaborate. Anyway, as we normally do, we started from a very strong instinct and sensation we have. We both are huge gatherers. And so we have tried to explore this instinct, focusing on gathering and trying to feed and support our body. Esculenta deals with the natural and ancestral impulse of gathering, what is found in nature in order to sustain and nourish our existence and physical vitality. Esculenta, in fact, is a collective project in the sense that it's open to the participation of different people. It implies the complete involvement, physical, sensorial, emotional, of the participants in the landscape in which the gathering action takes place. In the images, you can see some of the phases, the steps, different steps of the project. In Esculenta, feeding is intended as the most radical example of interspecific relation. The other, vegetal, mineral, animal, continuously become human body in some way, is a really carnal encounter with the other that become body. A sort of deep meeting with the alterity. And this for us is really the paradigm of ecology. We don't consider ecology only as a subject related with environment or the relation biocenosis and biotopes or something like that, but really a concept concerning the deep essence of all things in the world. Yeah, for us, ecology is related with ontology. We can speak of eco-ontologies in some way. In this sense, all things exist because they are ecological. Things in the world are not in relation, but are in the sense of exist only in the relation. On this perspective, provocatively, I mean, but not so much at the end, we can consider all art as ecological art and environmental art in some way. Esculenta is a work that tells walked and eaten landscapes and soils. It starts concentrating the attention to the scale of the individual specimens of plants, but then end up becoming a work on the landscape on a larger scale, which opens the gaze on the relationship between the various species and different environments, topographies, plants, communities, etc. Esculenta is a collective project in the sense that it's open to the participation of anyone interested in the process. The way levels of involvement in the project are extremely varied and may concern different action, the collection of spontaneous natural material, the processing, transformation, and conservation of raw materials, culinary experiments, the contribution in terms of knowledge and information on this topic. We exhibited this project in many artistic contexts, foundation, museum, etc., but we always try not to consider the exhibition only as a place in which to show the documentation of the process, but a way to involve new people in direct actions and experience on different territories. And then since it's an old project in some sense, but we continue, it's an ongoing project. We continue to experiment around this issue. And now we continue gathering edible materials in different contexts, in particular with the university students or the Faculty of Science Education of the University of Turin, in which I teach. And so we try to continue to experiment in this direction, but in the real world, in the sense, not only in the art system. And now we are more in this direction of experimenting this kind of experience directly in our real life, normal life, as we do also in the other project, in effect.
And now we go on with another work that is called Esculenta Lazarus. It's a sort of counterpart of Esculenta project concerning, in this case, the cultivated organisms realm. And the name Lazarus refers to the character of the New Testament who was resurrected by Jesus. And the project originates as in all our projects, from an instinctive necessity, in this case, a necessity of knowing and revealing the latent vitality of some edible materials of daily consumption, vegetables and fruits. In this project, we try to explore the concept of domestication through the practice of revitalization of cultivated vegetables. And the main aim is to consider vegetable as a living organism. And we put aside the usual way of considering fruits and vegetable products as object goods, food for consumption, and we focus on the attention towards the vegetable as a subject, as a living organism, animated by its own vital cycle. And the project consists in different action, practical action. We start with the purchase of fruit and vegetable product in an intermediate stage of their vital cycle. So we excluded seeds and fruit that are at the end of the cycle. And the purchase may occur in any level of the distribution chain, supermarket, open air market, also from farmers directly. And then we start the central phase of this project, that is the revitalization of the purchased vegetables through technique of various time, as also you can see in the picture, partial immersion in water, planting in ground directly, and then we do the allocation of revitalized vegetable in pots, also open field. And sometimes we created the Esculenta Lazarus gardens. We also did some project together with students. We did all the project of purchase of the vegetables in supermarket. Then we also had a long work of recognizing, and it's very interesting to see that sometimes young people do not recognize what is a leaf, what is a root, what is the up part of the plant, the bottom part of the plant. This is very interesting. And then we leave the plant free to manifest their natural vital cycle, a sort of recultivation, until their vital cycle is completed, flowering and seed production. And then there's also follow the auto-dissemination that allow the plant to go on with their sun. And it was very interesting to experiment this project, because we discovered during, not before, but during all the action, some important topics. For example, the well-known shapes of vegetable and that is considered food take a new aspect and forms due to the natural process of growth that to the eye of the vegetable consumer buyer may appear like unnatural deformities, like a strange monster, but in reality their natural form, their natural shape. And maybe this is the last picture of this project. And maybe the main topic that we realized during Esculenta Lazzaro is that emerges the perception of an ancestral choice that whole humanity made a long time ago. That is the domestication of many vegetable species. It was an action that is always evolving also nowadays, that mark a fundamental turn in the evolution of the human being. But also it was very important for other species. And allowing the manifestation of the entire cycle, growth, flowering, seed production until the death, and then the auto-dissemination, this corresponds to an inversion of the process of domestication. From a domesticated condition, the revitalized vegetables start to show their ancient wild soul. They change shape and they head toward the wild original state. So that's really an inversion of the process from domesticated to wild, and we could also could see really the change of the shape of the plant. And then if we have much more time, we'd like just to say a few words.
Yeah, a few.
Some project we did with PAV, with which we collaborate very often. We are very affectionate to PAV.
Yeah, PAV for us, this program is the most interesting art center in Italy concerning art and ecology issues. Yeah. And we had the chance to collaborate with them since the very beginning of their activities, in the sense that even before the physical construction of the building. In fact, we led in 2006 the first workshop organized by them in the construction site of the future art center. So we have a long history to collaboration with them. And Pedogenesis is the most important maybe project we did with them, is investigate the soil as a space of relationship. A soil is a space of relationship par excellence. In the soil, the organic and inorganic come into contact, giving rise to process of metamorphosis and exchanges between the states of solid, liquid, gaseous matter in some way. Yeah, our encounter with the ground was initially aesthetic, almost always happen in our work. Aesthetic in the original meaning of the term, from the Greek aesthesis, to perceive through the senses. And it's an instinctive attraction for the soil and for the exchange and transformation processes between organic and inorganic, living and non-living, that take place there in the soil, and for the complex dynamics and relationships that characterize the soil. Pedogenesis is a system that is made by two installations closely related to each other. You can see in the image. There's the first one is the transmuter of organic matter, is the title, and the other is the vegetable garden arc, orto arca in Italian. These two objects that are quite big, 20 meters, something like 20 meters the vegetable arc, and 3 or 4 meters the transmuter. The two objects act as catalyst for broad spectrum relationship between different people, places, and materials. The two objects are made of typical modular elements in galvanized iron used by farmers to build tunnel greenhouses. It's a very common component of the agricultural landscape in our territory here in Piedmont, and not only, also in Padana Plain. And farmers are probably the most important and pervasive landscape architect, in fact. The organic matter transmuter, that is an installation composter consisting of an agricultural tunnel greenhouse folded into a ring in a sort of toroidal shape, like a particle accelerator in some way, remind us a sort of nuclear stuff. Citizens living in the area and the people working at PAV too are invited to deliver their organic waste in the cylindrical earth of the installation composter. In the first 2 years of the project, of the installation life, for each bag of organic waste delivered at PAV, people received in exchange for free a certain amount of food. Organic waste and food were placed on the same level of value, because at the end they are basically formed by the same constantly changing materials. The transmuter is the site of the transformation of organic matter into compost, which will fertilize the soil of the vegetable garden arc. That is the other element of the installation. The vegetable garden arc is a structure consisting of an inverted agricultural tunnel greenhouse. It's a greenhouse upside down. The greenhouse delimits a vegetable garden and the shaded public area. The tunnel greenhouse is a typical element of the intensive agricultural landscape of the plain that normally excludes the external environment. If you invert the greenhouse, it became a sort of arc, a big whale skeleton, forming a welcoming and inclusive structure.
Perhaps
yeah,
that's to give place for others also.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah, then at the end it's only the piece of land delimited by the arc is a vegetable garden that is cultivated by a citizen of the city of Turin. We extracted in a lottery this piece of land, and then since 2009 is cultivated by one citizen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, I'm very sorry to interrupt. It's because like time is shortening, and this is a very great project as I know it. I mean, also because I love soils and worms. So, I mean, both of them you're cultivating, so that's great. But let me just say a word to the public. If you want to raise questions at the end, like in half an hour, not even, we'll ask you if you have questions. Please put them in the Q&R section at the bottom of your screen or in the conversation. So we'll pick them up and ask our participant to answer them. So now, please, I'm welcoming Georgina Hill, and she has a very different project as she has been working with Campo Adentro in Spain. And she will talk about a less soily and wormy experiment, but not less foodie. I don't even know if it works as a word, but please.
Thank you. Yeah, you could say we go from soil to water, perhaps.
Okay.
I will just share my screen. And thank you very much for this invitation. So yeah, I worked quite a few times with Campo Adentro, and the first time I went to the Inland project in Asturias in Spain with the Hito style class from Berlin, and we were actually a group of mainly media artists looking at lens and screens all the time, but became more and more cognizant of the fact that we needed to look also at rurality and locality as political structures, and that the natural, as we might call it, natural landscape also has obviously these connections for political structures too. So when I was there in the mountains in Spain, I came up with a speculative idea of a garden economy. So using the idea of a garden as a way to transpose a neoliberal economy, and not to see the garden as this perfect thing, because of course it's a structure as well, but as a means to think more about symbiosis rather than extraction, and how to live with the land or with people or whatever it is, rather than taking constantly until there's nothing. And I was also previously looking a lot at the flower industry in the UK, and also how sellers were being displaced by increasing capital and the kind of devaluing of that industry as well, in favor of cheaper produce. So these kinds of things have fed into my interest, which lately turned to the sea. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or if it's because of lockdown as well, from this idea of being stuck on our voyage and kind of fragmented, not able to go forward. So this kind of like watery symbol came into my practice. And then recently, just a few weeks ago, I started to be looking even more closely at the fishing industry, and in particular, how the Cantabrian coast relates to the Cornish coast, which you can see on this image here, they're facing each other. So I visited this northern part and some small fishing villages to start to do some field research about how certain politics and environmental issues are affecting the fishing industry. And it was quite interesting to find a lot of similarities between, this is a British fisherman, between the issues that the British are complaining of and the Spanish are complaining of and the French are complaining of, and nearly every European fishing industry has a certain gripe, whether it's to do with the jurisdictions or the quotas which are enforced by the EU. And it felt to me a little bit like, in some ways, that lots of the arguments were very understandable, but in some ways it also felt a little bit as a precursor to what will happen when there are even more environmental rules which will come in inevitably to try to save the planet. So this was a kind of interesting realization that what is a slightly small industry at the moment, it's like 0.1% of GDP for the UK, is actually kind of conveying something which is going to be affecting even more industries in the future in terms of food production and further. In the course of this research, as well as seeing like the political kind of elements of the fishing disputes and the fishing industry, there was also quite an interesting ability to see how mythical connections to the sea have been so continuous. So we go from coins in the Roman age, which had Venus on them. I think I have some, maybe not, to this festival that you see here, where the Virgin Mary is taken through the water. There's kind of a continuous line of iconography and ideology surrounding that which might be worshipped in order to protect the ships, to protect the fishing, the people, and so on. And it felt very much in a different way to the land. When we focus on the land, there are still myths, but this kind of mythical element is very pervasive in the sea because of the fact that there's very little shelter, there's more precariousness. Man or human is just beside nature the whole time, and so has to look slightly further, one might argue, for these symbolic kind of connections. The other thing which we started to look at as a focus of our interest. I was doing this as well with Fernando Garcia Dori, who he's also on the panel a couple of days ago, I think. So we were interviewing a fisherman on a small coastal harbour who is getting baby eels at the moment, which is this translucent, small, almost nothing there kind of material. And this goes for extreme amounts of money. It's worth, it can go up to 1,000 euros per kilogram for these baby eels. And the reason is because, just like many economical commodities in our current system, they're very scarce, they're very hard to come by. They're only available in the roughest nights of the year in November. And they also have a really strong cultural cachet because they're a delicacy in the wintertime in Spain, and also in China and Japan, they're a delicacy. So these men who have got a license, I didn't see any women, but there were men, and they would go in the night and collect these baby eels. But because they're so unaffordable for normal people, they're also available in this fake form that we see here on the right. So in the supermarkets, you can also buy the pretend version of this small delicacy. And it's a little bit, or very much like a fake bag or a fake branded anything. The kind of facsimile which is created, which could even, you could say, increase the value of the original, but is to allow an accessibility to something which is desired. So there's lots of things in this research, I guess, I would say, that is about how this industry, or how the coast is emblematic of many kinds of economical models we see in every structure, which is probably very obvious, but they're also, I think, slightly new to a common discourse, especially in the arts field. I don't know how long I've spoken for.
I mean, like a few minutes more.
Okay, and so the intention, this is a fish market as well. You can see how very clean and regulated, and kind of against the nostalgic idea one might have of a postcard of a fish market, that the regulation and the strength of the EU is such that it must be maintained in this way, and all the transactions go straight to Brussels. So there's I think this is also one of the things that we're finding in the research, is there's one kind of perception of this industry and the coast in a kind of idealized, nostalgic, sweet way, but in fact it's dealing with things in a much more different way and when you're on the ground. So having to combat that, and to see it also like the meat industry, and to have a more truthful perception. But the idea and how this project will continue, I usually make films, so I will interview, hopefully when the restrictions are a bit less, because interviewing in masks was slightly tricky, but interview different fishermen on the Cornish coast, here, and be able to draw these parallels and it would be a video essay, and I think that's slightly as well to do with our time and our not I am very willing to travel, but with a knowingness about the environmental problems that we face, but the idea of a film that could be more easily disseminated and go into create these discussions within the spaces in which this is happening too, as well as the art world. Okay.
Thank you very much. So you say that after the food as a decorated artifact, the food as being grown in the soil, and the food as being a capital, a financial good. I mean, finally, we're coming to Martin Zett, if he's here, as he left. I just see his screen with nobody. Oh, here he comes from under the table, I guess. So please, it is your turn to present what kind of food are you going to talk about, and the one you are doing in the context of the ArtMill as an artist in residency, the ArtMill being one of our partners in the context of the program of research creation, table and territory. So please, Martin, talk to us about the food you're growing.
Hello. I will speak about 2 or maybe 3 things I made in collaboration with ArtMill, and also I made them there in different years. First was there was a idea, I think by Barbara Benish, to go to Bangladesh and to somehow deal with the polluted rivers there. And I sometimes have dreams or maybe like attack of need to help or to invent something which could help. And when planning this, which at the end didn't happen, I heard also at some lecture in ArtMill that the problem with this plastic in the world ocean is not that the plastic is poisoned itself, but that it has the ability to carry the poisons. And I thought maybe if it can carry the poison, it could also take the poison from the water. And I was somehow developing some idea to place at the some places where the river enters the ocean, or maybe also some other places, kind of lungs from plastic. And we made the trial, the rehearsal with the plastic bags, and we were cleaning the red pond, which is close to the ArtMill, with it doesn't work like this. Why?
I see Barbara.
Somehow it doesn't want to go to the other side. Okay. Now maybe. Okay. So this is one thing. The other is this was maybe some 8 years ago. The other is I came there this summer. Maybe it was in the fall already, and it was the lockdown. No way to meet people, so just few people came. And when I came there, there was this beautiful table on the meadow, made, I think, by Nathalie, the daughter of Barbara. And it was something which, if it was not made, I would try to make. But when I came, it was ready, and I brought there the meat grinder and prepared the dish for everyone, and the dish was the red clay spaghetti, maybe red clay pasta. Okay, here is the Barbara eyes. I don't have any detail. Maybe here you can see a little more. Okay. And the last thing was, I think, last year or 2 years ago, with this okay, it was also very, very simple. We gathered there. I don't know, for some reason, I don't see other people on the images. This is the images which Barbara just sent to me, and I'm very bad in archiving and promoting and stuff like this. So the thing was, we gathered there and made a big bowl of salad, and people were invited to come and eat, but the rule was that who wants to eat must separate the individual ingredients, and only then consume them like they were before. That's it.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's difficult to understand from far away, but for me, who knows the place of the ArtMill, I see better what you have been doing with these images. So thank you. I was, if anybody has any question amongst the public, you're welcome.
I forgot to say, this is very important.
Please do.
Yeah, that actually the clay, the moment this clay and the clay and soil came from I was 4 years ago in Tous in some biennale which was organized by LADYSS-CNRS, and one of the topics was clay as the material which has great quality for cleaning the body. So, and if not only the body, the skin, and also the inside the body, which after this we tried with my wife some procedure that 3 weeks we were drinking the water, and from this thinking about the clay or the soil, I came to this moment that maybe the clay itself should be the food, because always we use soil, we put something there and force soil to help some other organism to grow, and then we eat the other organism. And the big problem for me when not eating the meat, why eating the plants? The plants are not much worse than the animals, maybe better, you know. Okay. So I thought maybe we just skip everything, and maybe the soil or the clay is the material for eating. Okay, this I wanted to say.
So thank you, everyone. I was wondering, I mean, if there is any question amongst the audience, Jessica. Otherwise, one thing that is, as I am a researcher and I observe art practices in this field since many years now, like 20 years, let's say. And I have understood doing that more and more artists are turning themselves toward food practices. I mean, that maybe in the 70s, I was thinking of artists such as Beuys, for example, who did some experiments with food. But right now, I was wondering if do artists turn themselves toward food practices because of climate change? Does it change anything that to be in this kind of context? Does it influence your practices? I mean, it's very clear for Carotte and Spagna that it does influence your practices because you speak always of ecology. But is it the case for Olga and Maria, or even Martin or Georgina? Do you have any answer to that about the influence of climate change and such issue in the public debate?
As far as TAVROS and our inauguration of this space is concerned, I would like to highlight that since we established our space a year ago, we decided that climate change and climate violence is one of our key and focal areas. So this program comes at a point where we have decided that we, along other issues such as democracy, human rights, etc., are very important to keep on discussing.
Okay. But why food? I mean, Georgina, are you interested to talk about a bit more about eels?
Yeah. I feel like as well, it's this issue which is probably the biggest of our time, along with rising extreme right-wingism, which you can also say go hand in hand as well, like fascist principles and destruction of nature. I think as well, personally, I come from actually a farming family, and the idea when I was a young person to get out of that was progress, to go and study in an academic context, to achieve something for myself, as opposed to the working class environment that I lived in. The idea was to try to get out of the land in a way as a sign of doing well. And I feel that that shifted so much, and it still is slightly. It's still quite a difficult conundrum. There's a tension between where one has to go in order to be able to say something. But I feel that there are some movements, a bit like Campo Adentro and Inland, but various other like collective organizations which are kind of moving away from competitivity and moving towards more collectivity, and maybe queering ideas of power that can then allow for a potential to talk about the rural, or exist in the rural, or exist in both. So I feel that there's like a combination of things, and it's to do a lot with the trajectory of society, or what's perceived as successful or worthy, and that is shifting as well. But it's like, I think it's very intersectional, and it's not just about those who are interested in food, but it's also like a wider political discourse perhaps, or artistic discourse as well.
Yes, that's very true, because some years ago when I asked the same question to different artists, they told me that, I mean, they didn't feel themselves as ecologists because they didn't want to carry a message. You know, art was not message. And right now, what we can observe is that more artists are getting into dealing with climate change and such issues in different ways. And I don't mean they're dealing with messages, but they're dealing with this issue and not caring anymore about being instrumentalized, because that's what some artists used to tell me, that they were afraid of being instrumentalized if they got into the field of ecology. So, I mean, Maria, perhaps you have some thought about that?
My thoughts are that concerning my project is how I connect food with technology. And at this moment, it's very connected. Like here in the lockdown, we all order our food from our phones. And that's the same thing what I do. Like I ask the audience to order their own wish. So technology is directly connected with all these environmental problems we discussed. For me, it's an underlying connection there.
Andrea and Rafaela, do you feel like the field of art and ecology has been evolving these last years?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot in the sense that, but I think that climate change has not changed our way of, because we consider climate change a sort of effect, not of another problem that is behind it. And climate change is only the effect of something else that is very deep, maybe. It is a sort of attitude. We call it a sort of anesthesia, a sort of lack of sensitivity, I don't know the term in English, to the alterity. And so if I can say, only knowing things is not enough. Only information I mean, now the problem, you know very well the problem since the 60s, the 80s, not the 70s, or also the end of the 60s. The problem was evident, and if till now no one very few steps we are doing to try to approach the problem. I think that is not for lacking knowledge or information about it. It's a sort that is related much more with our perception of environment, perception of the alterity. What is a plant for me? Which is my relation, physical relation, my sensual relation with it, with an animal, with a plant, with a rock too. For us, is the same at the end. And if I think that if we don't start from that, from an aesthetic issue, it's difficult to approach the ecological crisis. I mean, because ecology and perception perception is the base of ecology at the end. The way in which we practice the world depends on the way in which we perceive the world around us. And so, I mean, that we started many years ago, I mean, in this way, that is very instinctive in some way. And I feel that now the education processes are at the base of for trying to do something, education, and so to work with people, doing things. Stop. We all very often say, stop talking about ecology. We have to do ecology, to live ecology together with people, and try to do experience of the world, because it's strange, but it seems that we are not in the world at the end. We are always in another place. We are in our house, we are in our university, we are in our places, close places, but the world is in another place, the world, the real world. And so I think that we have the first thing we have to do is to maybe to go again in the world. And so that's why I hate webinar. Maybe the next webinar will be each one of us in a place, in a real place outside, doing something and telling the other what I'm doing, and so on, and discuss about that. And
that's very true. I mean, it's like it's a wonder how we can
radical ecological term, and this one. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's very true that communication through webinars is not up to ecology. I mean, it's like it's a sub-ecology, because we can't feel anything. I can't smell you, you know, for example. So, and well, do other panelists wants to talk about the aesthetics? I mean, how do ecology influence the aesthetics? Does it change the shapes you're going to create, or the relational processes you're going to highlight, for example? I mean,
I have a small example of it shaping my aesthetics in a recent film I made in the north of Germany by the Baltic Sea. Part of the aesthetics was try to inhabit the scale of natural elements. So using different kinds of cameras, like inspection cameras and contact mics, to try to perceive the environment differently and then aestheticize that variance of scale. So using technology actually to encounter the natural in a potentially new way, rather than having the human center or the human scale as the center.
yes, that's true. Jessica, are there questions?
Yes, there's actually one question. Okay, so it's in French. I'm gonna translate it. So did any of you had difficulties with institution have you been pushed away by institutions with your work that didn't have a strong political and social team? And did you have and did you feel obliged to do a certain political art just in order to get into some institutions? Did you understand my question? I don't know if it was very clear. Yeah.
I think that's clear. I mean, do you feel censored by institution in terms of your art? Does anyone want to answer? I can't answer, obviously.
I can start with the observation in terms. Sometime it happened that we had to discuss. It's sort of opposite to the question, in the sense that institutions like to have some more political work from us, more how do you say, impegnati, more engaged in terms of action, real political action from us. And so we decided to do the opposite, to present works that for us are political, because for us there are many actions we did that are for us political, strongly political too, but not in terms of direct political action, I don't know, in the community or in the certain places. And so sometimes institution would like, because curators need to have this maybe exhibition politically engaged, ecological, political engaged exhibition. And so try to have from us some work that work well for them in their ideas. But we think that politics is very broad in terms of possibilities. And so many of our work for us are political too, but not.
Well, ecology, I mean, just pleading in favor of ecological meaning, of taking into account ecological meaning can be political. I mean, for some people, it is a very political statement, you know, as you can see with the rise of the right wing already, extreme right wing. I mean, ecology gets into the political debate very much. There is another question, but in Italian.
It's fine, I translated it thanks to Google Translate. So in English, it goes, so what kind of relationship does the ecological genre of art have with traditional art?
Can you repeat?
What kind of relationship does ecological art has with traditional art?
Do anyone want to answer? Do you feel like ecological art as, I mean, that's your art, Maria. I mean, you just taking into tradition in order to make the new bread. I mean, this is a way of recreating tradition, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely recreating tradition. It's a way to bring the past to new terms, to nowadays terms, and speak about it. But what was the question about? It was connecting traditional art with ecology art.
Yeah.
So for my work, it's like creating a new language, and the language is inspired by nature in the beginning. So it speaks about nature, flowers, leaves, and so all these become a different language to reconsider how we live nowadays, and because of this comparison to the past, we can renegotiate about all these aspects. And it's very interesting to see all the concerns that people used to have back in the days. And that's an experiment to see how nowadays fears or wishes are gonna connect with the old days. And is still nature a way to express them? All these questions are going to be answered during the performance. I believe they are. They are connected.
Well, maybe a way to renew with tradition. Yes, that's it. But not for all.
I would like to add
Yeah.
to that, to those thoughts that given the fact that we as a space decided to focus only on bread, and bread for Greeks is a very common thing, is the most basic form of food and the most basic right to food. It's something that, and this also connects to your previous question, why food today? And bread is something we until up to now we hardly think about. It's a given. Everybody eats bread, everybody knows how to make bread, but nowadays also it becomes a question, going back to that, do we know how to make real bread? Do we consume real bread? What do we eat? What are the in neoliberal chain of production, all these bakeries, what kind of bread do they produce? So for us, it is very interesting to, through the commissions to Maria, to Hyperconf and Paki, who all research in different ways bread. It is very important to touch upon something so common, but at the same time, that is nowadays being reduced to a neoliberal object of consumption. And it's actually, it proves in Athens, it is quite rare to have real bread made and reproduced in high quantities.
Are there any other questions, Jessica?
There was a question in the conversation which is addressed to Martin, and it's about one of the projects you were talking about. So the question is, why that in your performance you said that the food was separated by the audience, and why was that? Could you explain more about this project you did? We can't hear you. Your microphone is, yeah.
Okay. So it was in a way related to the migration problems and discussions in my country, which was extremely hostile, I would say. So the food was kind of metaphor for society, let's say.
Oh, okay. Just food is metaphor.
Maybe going back to the question of terminology about like calling it ecological art, it feels like this can be quite a dangerous means of pigeonholing, and you can use it, of course, like naming and anything as a means of transforming or elevating, but it could also be to split it off from the inevitability, in fact, that it's so related to everybody's existence. So I feel like it's quite important actually as artists not to be defined in this way, but as fine art or contemporary art or as something more general, and that's not inaccessible. I also think that it should be, accessibility is quite important, and not taking these subjects for purely an initiated group of people is quite important too, that it's not only for an educated elite. But the fact is, it's a bit, there's a quite interesting Zizek video about this idea too, that the environment is everything. So I think it's quite impossible to define this kind of practice as separate to everything. So we may as well call it art, and that's enough.
I agree very much, but if you talk about the environment, or if you do art which is related to an environmental issue, some people will call it environmental art, you like it or not. I mean, it's like, I mean, you don't always pick how you tagged. That's always the same question, you know. But I agree very much on the political stance. I mean, it's very important to say that's art.
Yeah, normally we replied, as I said before, that all art is ecological art. Also, for me, also the ancient art. Art has to do with relationship between things in the world. I mean, then some artists are interested in, I don't know, plants and rocks and communities. Other artists are interested in, I don't know, iron or relationships or human ideas, I don't know. And then for me, that's the point. You can't do category check. Do categories. It's useful for one that had to, I mean, to study art and to study the art history and so on. It's useful for sure, but I think it's not interesting to create a category of ecological art, because at the end all is ecological. Also technology, I mean, it's very important to bring technology in the ecology, because it's the only way, I mean, to really to understand how to manage all this, the technological world, because also technological world has to do with science, with science and with matter too, with materials, and there's a materiality, a very heavy materiality in the technological world, and so
yes. So are there any other questions? Should we say?
There's no questions. Oh, wait, there's a last message. So yeah, there's a last question actually. So it's with what you were saying. So if everything is ecological, then what is art to each of you? Does it still exist?
This is a vast question.
Yeah.
This is a closure question.
What does exist mean at this point?
You're getting into very deep philosophical issues.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
I feel like it can't be very static, that it changes. At the moment, I think that we are potentially like the court jesters sometimes, the ones who are allowed to say the thing to the king, to make fun, to say that which isn't being said, or open up the possibilities of some questions. And that's sounds quite general, but it seems a really lucky but also a responsible position to be in. But I don't think it can be extremely didactic at this point. It must be to open up some possibility.
I think that art is related to some tradition and to some particular societies. Maybe if the society is different, this what we call art doesn't have place there. Or maybe it belongs to everybody. It could lose exclusivity very, very easily.
So you will lose exclusivity. I mean, you know, it's like going to craft work. I mean, mostly. So thank you, everybody. I think we can call it a night, as I think we say. And thank you again. And to everybody, it would be possible to view all webinars on the different site, table and territory on one hand, and the Center for Earth Politics on the other. And with Barbara, who has been wondering if art still exists, we will write a book and about all kind of practices related to food, art, and agriculture. So thank you, and have the best night. Well, behind our computers. Until next time in real.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.